Hello, Grant speaking. Jehovah speaking. Back again to make another video, and this video, just like all the other videos Grant does, will be a bit random. We'll have lots of ideas included. So Grant's been sleeping all afternoon, and it's late at night when most people are going to bed. And Grant just wants to record another video. So it's interesting, when Grant goes to sleep, he often, almost every day, in fact, it probably is every day, he wakes up every day with about 1, 2, or 3 new ideas. It seems as though he downloads information or he accesses new information in his sleep. And it makes life very difficult, actually, because it's useful. Obviously, Grant wants to know he wants his downloads. He wants to know what the truth is. He wants to find all the information that he needs, which is great. But what happens is Grant wakes up and he's like, new information, better find out what this is all about, and and Grant spends the entire day devoted to looking into that particular idea. And wow, it really does consume a lot of Grant's time, and it means that life, Grant's, all his other things just get put on hold all the time, so it makes things very difficult. And Grant can do that sort of thing for years and years on end, so it's quite, it's a lot of work. It's taken a long time to get to this point. But Grant just keeps going. And here's a new one. So Grant woke up today. So Grant was talking about Notre Dame, the cathedral, and the Whore of Babylon, and how the fact it's Mary, who was the mother of Jesus, who is the Whore of Babylon. She is the Whore of Babylon. Think about, what's the biggest religion in the world? Well, it's Roman Catholicism. And who's worshipped? Mary. She's treated like she is on the same level as God and Jesus. If not, she's essentially taken first place. People want to pray to her instead of God, which is wrong. Roman Catholicism was mixed with witchcraft, paganism. That's how it is. See, what happened is that, Mary is actually, Mary was the wife of God. So, you could say, there used to be a relationship between, there was a relationship between God and Mary. And, so, but the thing is that she is a jealous, evil whore. That's just how it is. And when I say just, I don't mean that it's justice. I'm just, you know how that word can be interpreted in different ways, right? But Mary is the Whore of Babylon. So Grant woke up today, and the first thing he can remember when waking up was machete, which is very interesting. Excuse me. Grant used to go clubbing years ago, and there was a there was a tune that came out, a drum and bass tune, called Machete by a DJ called DJ Hazard, Grant thinks. Interesting lyrics, it's like Machete, he knows the score, he gets the woman. What did Jesus say? He says, he said that he would, he's come to bring a sword, right? And you think about it, in the UK, the United Kingdom has a lot of problem with knife crime and machetes. Machetes are very sought after by criminals, aren't they? They're like, because they're cheap. A lot of them are cheap, and they're like, they're kind of like a sword, aren't they? And where do they get used? They get used in, you often see people who live in jungles, who live in the jungle, they'll have a machete, for chopping down plants and agriculture, using it for agriculture and so on. And so in the book of Revelation, you have the woman and the child who go into the wilderness. And so look, machete. So ma, which is short for mother, it's one way of saying mother or mum. Ma. Cheat. How would you spell cheat? Is it CHEAT? Is it CHEET? CHET? Ma cheat. Jesus said, when he returns, he says, he said he would come to bring a sword. If you know about swords in tarot, in tarot you have 4 different suits. You have swords, wands, pentacles or coins, and cups. And swords, the suit of swords deals with logic, communication, the truth. So essentially, Jesus, God, the Holy Spirit, come under, King of Swords, right? So the King of Swords, he represents the truth. He's the male. He represents, he's the king, and he's the king who holds the truth. He knows the truth. You got all these guys who, they buy machetes, right? It's witchcraft. It's witchcraft is what it is. I mean, these people, all these guys who are criminals and thugs and, who want to buy machetes, there's nothing intelligent going on in those brains of theirs, obviously. But witchcraft, foul spirits have pushed them in that direction. And they have their machete. And it acts as a magical, it's a magical object. It's a magical object because the name says ma cheat, and that is the truth. She does. Mary's the whore of Babylon. And so, even though they aren't consciously aware of the magical object they've collected for themselves, that is the truth. They are magic. Grant actually owns a couple swords. They're actually just replica swords. They are, they're expensive. Grant has spent so much money on just random things, thinking, okay, what's the next magical object Grant needs to acquire to break the curses? Well, you see, Grant is Scottish, okay? And when Grant was born, the year before Grant was born, there was a film that came out called Highlander. Okay? If you've seen the film Highlander, it's about a guy who's immortal. Connor MacLeod? Connor MacLeod. Okay? So Grant has a MacLeod sword. He has an Excalibur sword. And he has a Sting sword, which is what Frodo uses in Lord of the Rings. See, Grant is a Scorpio, and what does a scorpion have? It has a sting in the tail. So tail. You know what a tail is, right? Like a story. A story can be a tale. So they're magical objects, and so Grant has to acquire these objects. Another interesting one is Blade Runner. So in Blade Runner, you have the character Deckard. It's a combination of two words, isn't it? It's deck and card. In Freemasons, in witchcraft, tarot is very well used. It's very powerful. Essentially, what is tarot? It's a deck of cards that all and they all have different energies. Every card has its own story on it, or it has lots of different magical connections. And that's why when people shuffle those decks, the cards really do pop out in a certain order, because it's magic. That's just how that's how the universe is designed to work. It's beyond most people's comprehension, and if you go on and listen to any tarot reader, they have no idea what they're looking at all. They like to just sit there and make a bunch of rubbish stories, and essentially what they're doing is they're taking God's they're messing with God's power, and they're stirring the pot and trying to make it their own thing. And that's what they're doing. They're like flies attracted to crap, essentially. They're like flies that are like, yeah, I mean, they're just, these people are just headed towards the dung heap, essentially, aren't they? Because of what they're doing. They're playing with fire that they shouldn't be playing with. They were told not to. And, I mean, Grant can understand that people make mistakes. But, obviously you're supposed to learn from mistakes and stay away from things that God told you to stay away from. But, people do what they do. So this is the thing. Isn't it interesting? So, Jesus said, he says, those who live by the sword die by the sword. How are you supposed to interpret that when, by can mean many different things? By can mean to, or it could mean beside something. You're by something, you're beside something. Or maybe you're going to go out and buy something with some money, with some cash. So those who live by the sword die. Well, yeah, everyone dies, don't they? Everyone has to die at some point. So you better, buy that sword. That's the thing, right? Lean not on your own understanding. A man says, oh, this is how you spell this, and this is how you spell that. But God said, lean not on your own understanding. God, when God says something is the truth, what man has decided is the truth for himself, all that can just get blown away. It can all get pushed aside. Anything God says, nah, that's rubbish. Well, God is always right. God is, well, yeah, I mean, God, if God says something is the truth, and man wants to say, no, but this is how we do things, God, God obviously knows better, and that's how it is, plain and simple. Um, yeah. So, and obviously, so there was that film Machete, by Robert Rodriguez. And you know about the there's the was it Revelation chapter 10, or is it chapter 11? I think Grant thinks it's chapter 11, Book of Revelation, where it says, and it talks about the reed like a rod of iron, and it said, and he was given a rod like unto a rod of iron. It talks about how the rod of iron is used to rule over the nations, and so on. So, I mean, machete is made of steel, and steel is an alloy. It's iron and whatever else. It's like iron and carbon, and it can be other things as well. So, technically, it is iron. So, and this, this other thing, a man or men, have rods. If you know what, if you understand what Grant is saying, that's something a man, so you can interpret these things in different ways, and that is kind of, I mean, you think how many guys are worshipped in this world because of their rods, Oh, my rod's the biggest, I got it's like a rod of iron, and he shall roll the nations with his rod of iron, blah, 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 blah. It's not, it sounds, it's true though, it's true, it all has to do with magic, but, it's like, it all has to, it's like playing a computer game. You can complete the game, but you can have a mediocre score. Or there's always someone out there who's going to get a better score. The bigger combos or whatever it is, right? It's always, that's the thing. The universe, and the truth. It's all a giant jigsaw puzzle. It's like a million piece jigsaw puzzle that is, people put it together. They take all the different pieces and they think, yeah, that bit fits there. But then later on, they're like, they hit a wall and they're like, well, where did, they have to assess. They have to assess again. They're like, well, where did they go wrong, and where, they have to go back and look at the pieces and they go, oh, right, so that was in the wrong place, and that was in the wrong place, and that was in the wrong place. And they have to do it all over again, or they have to, move some bits here and there. And that's how it is looking for the truth. That's how it always is. Most people give up. Or, they, I don't. Grant doesn't really like. It's, but a lot of people, they don't make it. They don't get far enough. They find a bit of truth, and then they sit where they are, and they're like, well, that's enough. They don't budge far enough. They don't go far enough with it, because it is very time consuming. It's extremely time consuming, more than anyone would like to believe. It's a very, very long journey. A lot longer than anyone would ever think. Grant has been on an incredible journey for the last 10 years or so, going through learning. He started off learning about politics and human nature and how people behave, and why things are the way that they are, and Hey, you know, Grant used to look at like 10 different news outlets a day. Watching all the, listening to all the different things available on the internet. All differing points of views, and just going around in a spiral. Just spiraling outwards, just collecting and collecting and collecting and collecting as much information as possible. And it's been an incredible journey. Grant doesn't bother with politics anymore. I mean, he stopped that years ago because it's complete waste of time. And that's the thing, a lot of the things in this world, you switch on, you go on YouTube or you go watch the news. Most of it is a complete distraction. The world wants to distract you. It's kind of like, you think about all the green policies and recycling and all that stuff. And, Grant's not completely opposed to those sorts of things, but how much of it is a complete waste of time? How much of it is designed to actually just waste your time, do you think? And annoy you? People, worry about the weather changing. How much of that do you think is because of witchcraft? Yeah, it's because of witchcraft. A lot of it has to do with witchcraft. So if the weather is genuinely heating up, if the world is genuinely getting hotter, or the weather's becoming more extreme, you think about all the magic and witchcraft people do. It's coming back to, yeah, that's the thing. That's the way the universe is designed. People step out of line and keep doing that. Eventually, you'll find there's nothing left. It'll be bye bye. You're gone. That's the way God designed things. That if people just they went too far with their nonsense, well, they'd end up destroying themselves. It makes perfect sense, though, doesn't it? Why would God create a universe that would operate in a different way, where the evil can continue to carry on and on and on? Why not just design the universe so that, if evil well, the world is evil, but essentially there are consequences. People want to do evil magic. That's the thing. You think about Freemasons, right? These people use evil magic to get what they want, and the problem is that they don't care about the consequences of, so maybe they have, they get all the money and power, they get lots of money and power, they live a very nice life, and they get worshipped by millions and millions and millions of people, billions of people sometimes, and but who suffers as a result of that? Isn't it strange? People worship evil. They worship the ones causing their own downfall, yet they won't worship God. How weird, huh? See, the thing is that, people want to worship evil because, they want to do their evil deeds, sleeping around, being greedy, being selfish, because that appeals to them. God tells you to do good things, to love one another, and, people, they go, well, they turn their nose up at that. They're like, no, they would rather not have to do that. Even though that is the way to, if you want to live forever, that's the way to go. That's how you do it. You show that you're a loving individual. You show that you love God, and God will be like, cool, nice. God does not want evil. If someone's just gonna fall at the first temptation, then they're no good. Well, obviously people make mistakes, but if people can't learn, then people can't get out of sin. They can't discipline themselves, they can't prove that they love God, then that and God gives them so many chances, obviously, and help and blessings, and if people can't prove that, God gives them every opportunity to prove that they're that, but so many people fail, and that's just how it is. So yeah, so, and this is the thing, right? A lot of people think that God is only God has to do things. God has to discipline his children. Now, how's God going to do that, do you think? How does God discipline his children without doing something that a lot of people would say is evil? Well, God has to do what he has to do, right? He can't he can't always be the sacrificial lamb. He can't always offer his blood for redemption. He can't always do that. That is finished. And that time's past. People need to appreciate that's the situation, and it's time for God to bring about justice, and that's and God will do what he has to do in order to bring that about. A lot of people may not agree with it. They may look at it as being evil. There'll be a lot of people who will say, that's not God, he's evil, he's doing this, he's doing that, that's not right. But the fact is, God, if the actions if it makes sense, it makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense. And people have to really think about, don't judge too quickly. That's the best advice God can give you. If God's going to come back, he said he's coming back to bring a sword, he said he's going to come back like a thief in the night. What's a thief in the night? So, if a guy steals another man's girlfriend or wife or whatever, right? He takes her to bed in the night, right? He's a thief in the night. Is that what God was? Is that what Jesus was saying? Is that what God meant? Is that what he meant, or did he mean he was going to come in the night and rob you of all your belongings, or whatever, right? Well, he did say he was coming back for his bride, right? And obviously, people say, well, that's his followers, that's Israel, that's yeah. So people will say, well, it's that, yeah, but he did say he was coming back for his wife as well. So does that mean he's coming back to say, or is he coming back to have sex? It's interesting, isn't it? Like, not many people actually, and you think about how many descriptions there are in the scriptures, right? In the gospel, in the Old Testament, in the New Testament, it talks of, and it has quite descriptive language when it comes to, bosoms and, the bedchamber and entering in, etc., etc. Yeah. Yeah. When Jesus returns, is he going to want to have sex? It's something that a lot of people don't seem to have considered. But it's true. Yeah. I mean, what's so difficult about understanding that that's what God would want? You know, people associate sex with love. You know, like man marries wife, man and wife have sexual relations, and you know they call it making love. You know, who made all of that? Who designed everything? God, right? So, you know, people can say, yeah, well, God doesn't have sex, or blah, 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 or, you know, angels don't have genitals, or whatever. Yeah, you know, people seem to, you know, people really do. Um, Best advice Grant can give is, you know, have an open mind and don't make too many assumptions. You know, sometimes just because it's written one way, you know, the Bible, the scriptures, the New Testament, the Old Testament, the Word of God is, you know, it's, you know, you have parables, you know, how, a lot of it sounds like, you know what a riddle is, right? You know, it's, you know, it's a puzzle. You know, you have to search your own heart. You have to really, you know, you have to digest the words. You have to, and you know, use your heart, and you know, what do you believe? What do you really believe about God? You know, yeah. So it is what it is. It is what it is. Essentially, Mary became jealous of God. You see, God is the center of attention. God is the one who created everybody. God is love, right? God you know, God wants to be loved. And God has been through a lot of pain and suffering. God has shown his love. And all he asks is, you know, you know, that people love him in return. And God has tried to be as fair as possible. And God knows what people are like. God knows that people can be very evil. In fact, most people are evil. So, and people struggle with it. You know, everyone struggles with evil in this world. That's just how that is how it is. God has to be the center of attention, really. God has to put himself at the center of things. I mean, God should be at the center of things. I mean, God created everybody with love. You know, you know, God did so much for people, yet they want to forget about God and worship others instead. God asks people to do what's in their best interest. God loves his children, and says, look, children, you have to listen to God. You have to listen to your Father. You have to listen to what is right. You have to do the hard thing. You have to learn that which is difficult, because it's the best thing for you, and you will grow spiritually because of it. And how many people reject that and say, well, they would rather do something else? That's how it is. And Mary, well, she got jealous of God's position. She wanted to be the one who was the center of attention and the one who got all the love. She wanted all the sex. And that's what she did, essentially. She is very evil. She's become corrupt. That's just how she is. That is how she is. It's nothing just about her behavior. It's nothing about, you can't say she will receive justice for what she has done and what she's been doing. And when you think about it, right, you have all the people who worry about Mother Earth. Who is Mother Earth? Who is Mother Earth? And, you think about the serpent was cast to the earth. On thy belly you will go and consume dust for, all of your life, essentially, right? That's what was said to the serpent. I mean, look at the Roman Catholic Church. Why would they choose to worship Mary in place of God? Why would they do that? Why is it some children, they would rather side with their mother rather than their father? Well, there are some bad fathers out there. Sometimes listening to the mother is perhaps the best way to go, but in some cases, yeah. But when we're talking about God, the creator of everything, who loves his children, and they've chosen, and how many people have they followed after their evil mother instead. Yeah. So, Adam and Eve, what did they do? Well, they ate from that tree. They chose to know. They wanted the knowledge of good and evil. And here we all are, learning about good and evil. Yeah. Fascinating, isn't it? Yeah. People made a big mistake elevating, trying to elevate Mary above God. Like, it's crazy. Talking about the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Where's the evidence to, what made her so special? Where was, she was privileged to be given that position. She was put in a privileged position by God. God knew, God has foresight. God knows everything happens for a reason. But essentially, she was put in a privileged position. But that's the thing, power can drive people mad. And people get jealous. And that's the thing, you have people who, that's the thing, the enemy wants to get close to God. That saying, keep your friends close, but keep your enemies closer. God has lived that experience again and again and again and again and again. Always having to be next to the enemy in order to deal with them. In the most, that's that's how it goes a lot of the time. I mean, imagine that you do something, so you do so much to win people's affection, or to win somebody's affection, and then, you get a bit of affection from them, but then they give all their, they give just as much affection to someone else who never did anything for them, or did evil, do you know what I mean? It's hard to watch. It's hard, when you're put in that situation where, you have to put in so much effort to convince someone that, you're worthy of love. Yet somebody else can literally just, they just expect it, and it's given to them for basically nothing. It's that's the thing. That's essentially, you think about, well, what did Mary do to deserve all this worship? She gave birth to a child. She gave birth to Jesus. And did what basically any mother should do, which is give birth and look after the child and protect the child. What else did she do? What is it that made her so special? Exactly. Nothing is the answer to that one. I mean, if that makes her special in some way, well, think about all the people who were martyred. All the people who were also crucified for Jesus. For the truth. God did say, well, obviously, yeah, I mean, God loves his children, but his children have to respect that God comes first, and that God, should not be challenged in his authority and his position, because when people do that, it's a catastrophe. Think about it. I mean, you can't, if you have a leader of a team, for instance, just as an analogy, right? If you have a leader of a team, well, if the leader's good, the leader does the job properly, and, that's the best leader you can have, and everyone else wants to fight over leadership as well. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. It's just asking for a catastrophe. I mean, it's not, look at it from that perspective. God has to do what he has to do for the sake of his children. And if he has to be, that's the thing, God has to take that position. And people have to just respect that. People have to respect that is how it is. Be comforted be comforted by the fact that, it's not God just being selfish. It's not God just being, evil and wanting to have all the power for himself. It's also about love. It's also about, well, it's what's best for everybody, actually. The creator created you, and he has to be the center of attention. He has to take that spot because people are tempted by evil and power. They get greedy, they want to fight. They all want to stand on the summit of that mountain. They all want to be like, yeah, I'm the one who's standing at the top above everybody else. People will fight over that spot because they go crazy for power. You look at Lord of the Rings, right? I mean, what was his name? Boromir or whatever? He gets hold of the ring of power, and it drives him. That's the thing. It drives people mad. It has so much power. And Frodo has to, do battle with that. He has to carry that ring of power, extreme power, and not allow it to destroy him. It's a very dark path he has to go down to get his job done. It's a reflection. It's just a type of reflection of God's journey as well. It's all magic. It is what it is. Yeah, it's evil. Well, that's the thing. It's people were warned not to worship all these things, and the thing is, it's all magic. People look at it as harmless, but really, it's a battle with God. It is actually a battle with God. You think about how many people they create gods. They're like, oh, there's this God, we'll give him this name, and this is what he looks like, and this is his story, and blah 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 blah. It's the same as you have superheroes like Spider-Man, or you have the Hulk, or Superman, or whatever, right? Or or James Bond, or Austin Powers, whatever it is, right? They're all stories, they're all magic, and they all affect God in one way or another because they're all pulling on God's energy, they're all reflecting God in some way or another. And so it's because that's the thing. God is the light by which everyone sees. And why do you think it is that people talk about story arcs, and how often how many stories are exactly the same? It's just like a different character with slightly different attributes or whatever, but essentially it's like, yeah, the good guy always wins or whatever, or people like to root for the villain, don't they? But then they're like, well, actually the villain, you could argue maybe he is the good guy. Maybe the guy who's labeled good isn't really good. Maybe he's the bad guy, really. Maybe it's the villain who's the one who's deserving. He's actually just trying to get justice. It's all a matter of perspective. It really depends how much you understand. Don't lean on your own understanding, and don't and also the way the world looks at things is wrong. The world gets everything wrong. It's like, what did God say? What did God say was going to happen? You have to take all those things into consideration. What is justice? What does justice look like? Etc. All right. So, really important stuff to think about. Excuse me, wow. Anyway, Grant has a lot to do. Grant has a lot of cleaning to do. Oh, one moment. it's very difficult for Grant to have a video and try to stick to a certain format because how language is so tricky and magic is so tricky. It's it seems very messy, the video, but really it's just how Grant has to think about things all day long, every day, seeing how one thing is affected by another thing, and you go this path and you're going down different, you're branching off here, there, and everywhere, and eventually you find you go full circle and you come right back around again. You're like, oh look, here we are again, and then you start thinking about something else entirely, and then see how it, and you work your way back to where you started. It's a huge mental map that you have to build, and you just have to shift around looking at how everything connects, how all the different dots connect, until you build the bigger picture and you can finally see what it is that you're looking for. And then once you've got that section sorted, you can move on to another section. It really is, it's just been so much work doing all of this. It really is. Yeah. Grant has to, because everything is magic. Grant wears glasses. It's like 4 eyes. Got to think about the branding of, it's Tom Ford glasses. What are the magical implications of looking through glass? When you have, Microsoft Windows, you have LCD screens, you've got Gorilla Glass, smartphones. What is glass made of? It's made of sand, isn't it? What did God say to Abraham about the descendants? It'll be like grains of sand on a beach, right? And there was you think about the number 999. The ninth letter of the alphabet is I. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. I. What's one higher than 999? You call 999 in an emergency. You're like, help me. Please help me. I'm in trouble. 999. What is one above 999? Well, it's one thou sand. Thou sand. What is sand? It's the material world, isn't it? So, isn't it interesting, the story of the, Adam and Eve and the serpent, and, they wanted to put themselves above God, essentially, right? Thou sand. There you go. In the book of Revelation, it talks about the 144,000. So the fourth letter of the alphabet is D. So you got A, you got 1, which is A, and D. Add thou sand. It can be interpreted in many different ways. It's magic, and once you understand the magic of the world, Grant has studied tarot. Tarot is really important. Grant never used to realize how important tarot was. Grant never messed around with all this witchcraft stuff. It was only because he was forced into learning it, because he realized that it's a weapon against him. And he's like, well, better buy that stuff and have a look at it and see what it's all about. You got to learn about your enemy's tools. You got to be like, well, that's what they're using against me. So, what's it all about? It took me ages. It took Grant ages to learn about it. Grant knows it inside out now. Absolutely crazy stuff. But that's just what Grant had to do. Be ye wise as serpents. Yeah. Be ye wise as serpents. Yeah, the third eye as serpents. You know what the 13th sign of the zodiac is? It's Ophiuchus. Or it's spelled Ophiuchus. Grant things. Ophiuchus or Ophiuchus. Yeah. Ophi. Grant's mother was called Fee. Very evil woman. Very evil. Very serpent-like, Grant would say. But Ophiuchus is called the serpent bearer. And so he's this man and he carries the serpent. That is, well, God, certainly in this lifetime, has to bear the serpent, has to carry that serpent. Well, if you think about it, right? So, you know, a man and woman get married, they become one flesh, don't they? So if God was married to evil, right? Well, think about that one, right? So he has to carry that evil flesh with him as well. He has to bear that serpent. It's an interesting thought. Grant has to figure out so much stuff. Grant's been thinking about it for a while, but you know, what's the 13th card of tarot, of the major arcana? Well, it's the death card. You know, you have the fourth horseman of the apocalypse, right? The fourth horseman, he's called Death. Death in tarot is a Scorpio card. You know, so Jesus came to bring life, died on the cross. He got the keys to death and Hades, and so he has the keys of Hades. He has the keys of hell. You know, it's an interesting thought, that, isn't it? So Jesus has the keys of hell, and he's coming back, to bring a sword. He's going to be a thief in the night. You know, what does that all mean? You know, so Scorpio, Death, and the Tower are the two Scorpio cards in the major arcana of the tarot. The tarot represents destruction. Interesting, isn't it? We've seen a few towers fall down, haven't we, in the last 36 years, haven't we? Yeah. In fact, when Grant would have been 13 years old in 2001, September 11th. And the 13th card of tarot is Death. Yeah. And then they went to war with Iraq, and you know, you had Iraq and Afghanistan and Ra. Well, who's Ra? The sun god, right? In Egyptian mythology. Yeah. Yeah. You know, essentially, you know, Grant was making the point about the 14th card of tarot is Temperance, which is Archangel Michael, and it's about, you know, you have Archangel Michael in the picture, in the art, and it's about alchemy and artwork. You know, God, all the artwork reflects God, even the stuff that, you know, the good stuff and the evil stuff. You know, you think about Spider-Man. Well, you know, God spends a lot of time on the internet. Um, they reflect certain aspects of God, essentially. But you think how much artwork is there? Just absolutely tons of it. They all just they take a bit from here, they take a bit from there. That's why people are so obsessed with art and music and being creative. Because they acquire it gives them a type of magical power. Um, if you know anything about manga, you have Berserk, and there's the main character, and he's called Guts. He falls out of his dead mother's body, she was hung, and he falls out of her dead body, and he's raised by some guy, and he learns to wield this enormous sword. And he fights demons and gods and stuff. Yeah, I mean, he's just alone. He's the lone black swordsman, the guy who travels around. He's like a mercenary, just going around, just trying to make money and deal out his own sense of justice. Essentially, he's a total loner. That's how he likes it, because and he's very, very prideful and arrogant. But then again, that's the thing. God has to be. Well, that's the thing. Anyone who realizes, God is in this most supreme. He's not. He's number one. There's no one above God. Well, if we're talking, obviously I'm sitting on the ground floor of a house. Maybe you could be on the first. Someone could be, or someone could be in an airplane up in the sky. But in terms of there's God is the most powerful. God is no one can beat. There isn't any human being. There's no other entity that can defeat God. God defeats his enemies, and that's how it goes. That's how it will always be. God cannot lose in the long term against anybody. God designed everything. God made everything how it is. God had the foresight. God knew how everything was going to go from when he created it. There's a reason for everything. God will. God doesn't have to worry about the outcome. It's all about taking that journey and getting and going through the journey. The outcome is already known. God does not lose against anybody. So it could be a stressful, painful journey, sure, but essentially, at the end of it, God already knows what the ending will look like. So that's how it is. And God, if anyone should be arrogant or confident, or if anyone is in a position to boast about who they are and their power, it is God. God has that position to boast. It's interesting how humans, they love to boast and boast and boast and boast and boast and boast and boast. Well, God can return that. God can do the same thing. God can do it too. God has to. God has to put people in their place. people have to respect that God has a job to do. God will do what he has to do. And, God said, do not judge, do not, try to see things from God's point of view. God has to do what he has to do. And God will do what he wants to do. If you think God loves you and you love God, if you understand God, you just have to say, well, God, you're the creator, you love me, and you gotta look at it from that point of view. You just have to really accept, and if you truly love God, you will accept God for who he is. It's very easy for people to get, to make accusations and judge and get jealous and say, well, God is, trying to make out that God is evil because, but the complexity of things, things are so complex. It's to make a snap judgment about God is a very stupid thing to do. If you really haven't thought about why God actually may do things a certain way, then it's not very it's a very unwise thing to do, to make a snap judgment about God, obviously. Well, that's the thing. Look what happened with Sodom and Gomorrah. A lot of people like to say, well, they were just they were a bunch of homosexuals. Well, people made up the word sodomite. Where did the word sodomize come from? It was an invented word by man. So why? Well, that's not to say that homosexuality wasn't a thing in Sodom and Gomorrah. That's not what Grant is saying. Grant is saying that it could have been a lot more than just that. It could have been, it could have been a lot. It could have been some very, very bad stuff that was happening there. Very bad stuff. How bad, what can you imagine with your mind? You probably don't want to go down that road, but honestly, humans are capable of very evil things. Very evil things. We're talking about slavery, bondage, adults preying on children, all that kind of stuff, right? That is extremely evil. There's some very evil stuff that people do. And, a man loving a man is definitely not the worst thing that can happen. A nice man and another nice man, you don't know that, okay, God said that a man shouldn't lie with another man and a woman shouldn't lie with another woman, but it's certainly not the most evil. You think how evil people can be, murderers, rapists. You hear a story of people who lock children in their basements and things like that, in chains. Which one makes you, which one do you think would make God extremely angry, to want to murder, to destroy an entire city of people? Which one do you think would cause God to destroy an entire group of people? Which one do you think it would be? Which evil deed do you think it would have been? Yeah, well, have a good think about that one. It's pretty obvious to Grant, Anyway, Grant is, just, the thing is, Grant puts out a lot of different ideas and thoughts, write down, interesting thoughts and explore them for yourself. Grant tries to include as much as he can in one video. Yeah, that's how it is. So, Mad Cheat. Well, what does it say about the Whore of Babylon? It says, she sits on the throne as a queen, who is, she pretends that she isn't a widow. She pretends that her husband isn't dead. And what does it mean? Well, there's literal death, like the body is dead, and then there's spiritual death. So, Jesus was sinless, right? He came to bring life. And then you have a Scorpio who is labeled as death. Well, it's kind of fitting, really, isn't it? Really, last time God came to bring life, and then 2000 later, at the end of the world, of the apocalypse, Armageddon, he comes back as death, the Grim Reaper. He's come to reap. He's come to reap. It's fitting. It fits, though, doesn't it? Does it not make some kind of sense? It's certainly worth considering if you haven't thought about it before. The angel who sits in the cloud, thrust in your sickle, reap. Yeah. So, that is, well, that's the thing, the book of Revelation, it's the way it's written. It's, it's not to be taken literally, but if you understand magic and the power of words, it's a puzzle that needs to be solved. Essentially, the stories act as, they are powerful, and knowing how to trigger, Grant knows, Grant has to figure out how to use magic and trigger these things, to take place. It's like looking for the bit of information, looking for where the piece fits, and then putting it where it needs to be. And when that happens, watch the television, see what people start talking about. It'll be chaos. People will be going mad, doing all kinds of crazy stuff, talking about what they talk about. It's all magic battles. It's all magic battles. That's all there ever is. Reflect, or deflect. I mean, you listen to some of the, most tarot readers. There are tarot readers, and all they do is they shuffle the cards, and they want to spin the story the other way around. So instead of accepting that the cards are telling them, like, stop doing this, you're evil, there are consequences for your actions, they spin it around and they just put it on their listeners, and they're like, hey listeners, there's all this bad energy coming your way. Yeah, that's your story, not mine. That's what they ever do. They just deflect, and they stir the pot. And then they upload it to YouTube. Yeah, and then they collect their money. It's crazy. It's so crazy. But they're completely surrounded by evil spirits. And they want to, they don't understand how that's the thing. They're, God's energy is so powerful. It's like, the ring in The Lord of the Rings. You have that ring of power, and people get closer and closer to that power through magic, and it corrupts them. It corrupts them, because they cannot. They're surrounded by so many. They're being attacked by so many evil spirits that, they just fold like a, like a loon, a foldable chair or what. They just, they get. They don't have the strength to deal with that. They don't have the power. They don't, people are told to stay away from, people were warned, like, be careful, because this is, the devil, the accuser, the evil ones, yeah, they'll come after you. They'll try to twist your mind. They'll try to tempt you. They'll try to pull you down an evil path. God is good, and God is strong enough to fight off evil spirits. God is able to contend with them and win. Yeah. Grant has struggled over the years. He's been tricked by some evil spirits. Mary, Aaliyah Dana Houghton. Yeah. He realized he had a spirit with him, one in particular, and she wanted him to know. And he was running through a list of, thinking about different people. And he was looking around, brainstorming, thinking of ideas, like, who could this be? What's going on here? And then it's like, aha, right, so we got here. So this is the situation. And then looked into it further, and it's like, well, she died right before 9/11. And if you look at, she was the queen of the damned. She was the vampire, crazy vampire lady who was trying to take over the world. Anyway, yeah, Grant figured all that out and what she was all about. That's the thing, totally corrupted by, pleasures, and just greedy, and, completely only interested in the material and pleasure, and, there's no real love. There's no love in there. It really, all it is just evil. She just completely, all she wants is evil. She wants to, how some people, they'll have, sex dungeons, yeah, people have no idea of what humans have done in this world. How they imprison people and how they abuse people. People have, people only see what they want to see. People only believe what they want. Most people only believe what they want to believe. But if you really want to know the truth, you have to look at the dark stuff. Well, that's the thing. Like, you have to know what the enemy is doing. Grant had to expose himself to many frightening, horrific truths, and doing that on his own, very, very disturbing. Not having anyone to talk to about it, very disturbing. So it's a lot of weight to carry, that. Very depressing, and it's like digging up a garden of dead bodies. You know what I mean? It's You know what Grant means. You have, who would want to do that? Who would want to do that? There was a film actually. I remember watching that. What was it? Stir of Echoes. And it's Kevin Bacon. He starts getting all these. He gets visited by ghosts, and he finds out he's got there's like dead bodies, or there's like a dead girl who's buried under the house. Very yeah, it just drives him mad. Essentially, the ghosts come to him and they're like, "Hey, you need to dig under your house because there's something under there." And it's like, everyone's like, "You're crazy! Don't do that! What's wrong with you?" Yeah, well, Grant used to watch that when he was a kid, when he was a teenager. Used to be one of his favorite. No, it was one of his favorite films actually. Strangely enough. Grant always, thought, he's a family man, and he's got a wife and he's got a kid. He's got, they've got this nice little family home. It's kind of, it just looks so cozy and so nice and pleasant. And that was part of the appeal of the film. Actually, I think that Grant thinks. Grant's like, yeah, isn't that kind of. Grant wanted to have a wife and kids. Grant just wanted a regular life, really, or something like that. Just his own family, close family that he felt loved in. People he could and Grant always had problems with his family. Grant always struggled to find those feelings of love because nobody around him ever loved him, really. They just treated him like an obligation. And he realized that these people just felt obligated. They're just trying to protect their own reputations, right? They're just they don't want to be thought of as bad people, so they say, "Oh, well, here's this £20 note, or here's a bit of money, or we'll give you a bed to sleep in for a while. Don't you worry about it." Bloody bloody blah. But what does it really amount to? Really, some people, they only care about their image. They only care about how they are perceived. But that has nothing to do with love at all. It's just them fooling themselves. They tell themselves that they love, but they don't. Anyway, Grant can really yap, he can really go on and on and on. Yeah. Well, Grant's gonna have to do a bit of shopping. He's gonna have to get himself a machete. Because it's magic. It's magic. That whore, she's cheated. She's been cheating. And when Grant gets a machete, well, that is very powerful. That's going to really mess with her witchcraft. That's how it works. You think about it, Grant. Yeah, what? So Grant lives in the United Kingdom, and you have all the migrants. They come over on the boats. What was Aaliyah Dana Houghton's last song that she did before she died? Oh yeah, it was that song called "Rock the Boat," and it was about a song about bondage, tying the rope and rocking the boat. Yeah, You know, she used to think she was an Egyptian goddess. She used to think of herself as, you know, she had this strong connection to Egypt. You know, yeah. Well, that's the thing. You know, she's. You know, how many women are all about that? You know, they. You know, well, how crazy did women go over the 50 Shades of Grey book and films? You know, they were like, oh. You know, women say they want it one way, and you know they want it another way. You know, it's the way women behave. A lot of women, it's very obvious something strange is going on there. Obviously. It's interesting, isn't it? Like, a guy who's good looking can get away with doing pretty much anything he wants when women are concerned, but a guy who's not good looking in the eyes of women, you know, they will basically just treat him like a criminal for just how he looks. Like, oh, you don't deserve to live. And you know, some women are like that. Grant has experienced women who are like that. You know, it's kind of like it's all, you know, and also you go to, you know, Grant is help, you know, Grant tries to be polite, you know, you hold a door open for somebody, you know, like there's someone behind him and they're walking into a building, it's like, oh, there's the door for you. And you know, some women are like, don't you dare hold the door for me, I don't need you to hold the door for me. And then the next time, you know, he just lets go of the door, and then the woman's just like, how dare you slam the door on me. So it's like, I didn't slam the door on you, I just didn't hold it open for you. You know, Grant didn't hold it open for you this time. You know, like what you know, Grant can never seem to win with people. It's always you know, it's this, everyone conspires to attack Grant. It doesn't matter what option he picks. It's always going to be, well, it's not good enough, Grant. It's not good enough, Grant. You didn't do it correctly, Grant. You know, you didn't do the right thing, Grant. It's like, you know, well, you know, that's how it always is. That's Grant's life in a nutshell. That's how God has to you know, that's how the evil spirits come after Grant. They want to, you know, they accuse, and they accuse, and they accuse. Alright? What's the accuser? The false accuser. You know, it doesn't matter what Grant does. He's always going to be wrong in some kind of way. Oh yeah, you know, Grant was talking about Ophiuchus, the serpent bearer. And if you've listened to any of Grant's videos, you know, he talks about the third eye, right? The third eye. You know, you have the eye of providence, you have the all-seeing eye. Go look at the, you know, it looks like a sphincter with an eyeball in the middle of it. Well, that's the thing. That's where the magic takes place. That's where, you know, the dusty snake lives, right? That's you know. So you have eye and eyes, right? So you know, like, you know, Grant and grants, right? If something belongs to Grant, it's grants. Right, so you have eye, the one eye, and then you have eyes. You know, that's how the magic works. That's how it tries to steal power. What was Grant going to say again? About, oh yeah, so Satan. So what is Satan? Satan is just it is a word. Sat, an us. Sat, an. You know, that's where the serpent lives. In God. Yeah, the serpent bearer. God, the serpent bearer. Yes, the guy, that dusty snake. Yeah, that dusty snake wants to. Yeah, it's the truth. As crazy as it sounds, that's you know, well, that's the thing. You know, the evil spirits want God to sound crazy. You know, think about it. You know, the evil spirits don't want to make it easy on God at all, do they? It's all about it's the battle. That's just how the battle is. What is, you talk about Mother Earth. What is Earth? It's dirt, it's soil, it's ground, it's dust, it's dirt. Snake. What's this, What was the snake told? What was the serpent told, On thy belly, you shall go. Blah, blah, blah. The ground is cursed for thy sake. Thy sake? Thy sake? Strange, isn't it? Yeah. Anyway, Grant has yapped enough, I think. Yeah. Grant has spoken a lot. Grant has spoken a lot. So, the Whore of Babylon. Grant has explained. Grant has made it very clear who she is. And she has her evil followers. Those who are evil are on her side. Whether they go to a Roman Catholic church or not. Whether, whatever, if they're on her side, they're on her side. It's Marie. Marie. Everybody. Body. Yeah. Eve was made from the side of Adam. Have you looked at the infinity symbol? It's a sideways 8. What does it mean to eat? Or to, if you ate something. Yeah. So if you eat something, you put it in here. You eat it. If you ate something, that's something in the past. What is the past? It's what's behind you. What is behind you? They're not exactly the same thing. What's in the past and what's behind you are not necessarily the same thing. But there's a huge overlap between those two things. You understand how that works? That's how magic works. It's the grey area. It's the shadow. Right? It's the evil lurking in the shadows. Yeah? Well, that's where the evil likes to lurk, in the shadows. Grant could talk about so many things. Grant has so many ideas and so many. You could just go on and on and on and on and on and on. Anyway, that'll do. Catch you later.